Hey, this is J.R. St. Julien with Keller Williams Realty, and I'm here with you to bring you my mid-month market update. Now, one of the questions I'm getting a lot right now is whether or not the market is cooling off. So let's talk about that. So recently, if you've been following the market, you may have noticed a large number of price decreases. And when folks are following the market, all of a sudden they start seeing all these price decreases. Obviously, the next question is, hey, are prices going down? Is the market cooling off? And that's the question I've been getting a lot lately. So the answer to that question is yes, kind of. And what that means exactly is that, yes, we've seen a large number in price decreases, and there's a few reasons behind that. And then we've also seen a decrease in demand, and there's some normal reasons behind that. So let's talk about both of those. So let's start with the decrease in demand. So right now what we're seeing is a return to seasonality, which is basically the seasonal cycle that the real estate market goes through, where demand ebbs, demand flows pretty much consistently year after year around the same time frame every year. Last year, seasonality went out the window. COVID wrecked everything. But this year, seasonality has started to return as we approach the end of the summer. Typically, August and September are months where we see some drastic slowdowns in activity as folks start to figure out their back to school plans, they wrap up maybe their last minute vacations, etc., and get adjusted back to the family life with everybody going back to school and kind of coming out of the summer period. So that's pretty normal. So typically in August and September, we see a drop in demand and drop in activity. And we're starting to see that a little bit right now. So things have slowed down a little bit. Now, simultaneously, what we're also seeing is the effects of that steep run-up that we saw in the price appreciation between January and June of this year. So from January to June, the market went crazy. Prices went through the roof. And then since June, pretty much between June and July, the prices have plateaued. Now, as a result of that steep run-up and how fast it happened, many buyers that wanted to buy a home were priced out of the market. And they basically just, bowed out and said, hey, we can no longer afford to buy a home here in San Diego. Another thing that has happened is the buyers that could still afford to buy, due to the level of competition that they experienced during those months, they experienced some buyer fatigue and said, you know what, I'm out, I quit, this is too tough, I'm moving on. So we lost a few buyers and we lost a bit of demand as a result of those two things as well. So when you combine the seasonality, that's pretty normal, and then the fatigue and kind of folks getting priced out from that steep run up in appreciation, we've seen the demand fall off, substantially, not enough to really change the market, but enough where you can see it. So no longer are we competing against 20 other folks or 10 other folks for every single property. Maybe we can have an opportunity to negotiate one-on-one or compete against a handful of folks for a particular property with client, when we're working with buyers that's looking to try to buy a home. So that's what's happening on the demand side. Now, despite the decrease in demand, we haven't seen a drastic impact on the market per se. And the reason for that is simple. The days on market are still hovering right around 18 days on average. We hit the low point in June, and in July it's the same number. And so we're still hovering right at 18 days on market. And the absorption rate, which is basically the months of inventory available to be purchased at any given time, is still hovering right around 1 month. And that's been hovering around 1 month since December. So basically that just means that, hey, right around 1 month, we can maybe dip a little bit below that. It's about as fast as we absorb the houses on the market in this particular market, is despite the level of demand that we have. As long as there's enough demand to gobble up what's there, if it's gobbling up at a fast rate of speed, that's going to put us right around a month, maybe slightly below in the months of inventory on market on average. And that's where we've been since December of last year. And so while we have seen a drop off in demand, we haven't seen a change in any of those numbers. So the demand drop off is not substantial enough in order to actually affect the market, which is kind of the same thing that we saw back in March of 2020 when everybody was worried about the COVID effect. Well, while we saw a nice drop off in demand, it wasn't enough to affect the market. The market continued to progress forward. We're kind of still seeing the same thing right now. Now, on the flip side, with these price decreases, one thing that we are seeing is that seller expectations are starting to be realigned with the current market. And if you think about kind of typical human logic, if you've been listening to how you can get almost any price for your home for the last 6 months. And you've been listening to that, and you finally decided to put your home on the market to get this wonderful number that you have in your head. But if that number is unreasonable, your home's not going to sell. So right now, reason has come back into the market, and those that have listed their home for unreasonable numbers have had to realign their expectation with the actual marketplace and actual reason, and that's why we're seeing a spike in the number of price decreases on the market right now. So that doesn't mean the market is going down. What it means is that sellers' unreasonable expectations are finally being adjusted. That's why it's very important right now, if you're thinking about selling, it's still a great time to sell your home. But if you're thinking about selling, you need to make sure that you're going to list that property with someone that understands the market, is in tune with the market, and listen to that person so you don't put yourself in a place where you'll reap the negative benefits of overpricing your home. Because basically, when you overprice your home, especially once the market has realigned with reason and actual the market data, which it has done now, if you overprice your home, you are guaranteed to get less money when you sell that property. Works out that way every time. If you happen to slightly underprice it, you potentially can get more money when you sell that home. If you overprice it, you are guaranteed to get less. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about selling your property. Now, that being said, let's talk about the other side of things, the inventory, because remember, this is a supply and demand situation that we're dealing with here. In order to really understand the inventory situation, we need to look back to 2019. So right now, our inventory levels are just about in line with 2020, but 2020 was a crazy year, so you can throw those numbers out the window. So in July of 2019, the available inventory of detached homes was just under 10,000 homes available for the month of July back in 2019. In 2021, that number is just over 2,200 homes. That's a 78% decrease in the available number of homes to be purchased from a normal year to the current year. And remember, back in July of 2019, the inventory wasn't, it wasn't a buyer's market, it was still a seller's market, so the inventory was still generally low. But that just goes to show you the drastic levels of inventory decreases that we have in the marketplace today, which is a significant driver of everything that you've been seeing all year. Now, on the attached side, the number is not as aggressive, but still very similar. Back in July of 2019, we had just over 3,000 homes available to be sold. And July of 2021, we have just over 1,100. Again, substantial decrease, down about 2/3. Okay, so when you combine all of this information together, we got a drop in demand, still an extremely low level of supply in one of the most beautiful cities in the country. What does that mean? Yes, the market is cooling off slightly. Yes, we're not going to see the same rate of appreciation that we saw in the first half of the year in the second half of the year. But it does not mean that the market is turning south. It does not mean that the prices are going down. It does mean if you're thinking about purchasing a home, you may have an opportunity. You have to look for the opportunities, but you may have an opportunity to negotiate a decent deal on your home purchase. And if you're thinking about selling a home, you need to make sure that you're working with a professional that understands the marketplace and that you don't put greed and your expectations over and above the market reality, because all that's going to do is result in a lower net sum in your pocket when it's all said and done. So that being said, if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, I would love to talk to you more about that. Would love to help you with that transaction. Give me a call. My number, all of my information will follow this video. And as always, it's been a pleasure. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again next month.